Deep in the mountainous regions of the Philippines, where ancient forests meet rolling hills and time seems to move at its own pace, lives a community whose story has been whispered through generations but rarely heard by the outside world. Today, we're going to explore the remarkable heritage of the Subanon people, an indigenous community whose very name carries the weight of their identity and history. The word Subanon literally translates to people of the river, a name that immediately tells us something profound about how this community sees itself in relation to the natural world around them. For hundreds of years, the Subanon have called the upland regions of the Zamboanga Peninsula and parts of Misamis Occidental their home, creating a civilization that exists in harmony with the dense forests and flowing waterways that define their landscape. When Spanish colonizers first arrived in the Philippines, they encountered numerous indigenous groups, but the Subanon presented something unique. Unlike many coastal communities that became deeply integrated into colonial systems, the Subanon largely maintained their autonomy by retreating deeper into the mountains and forests they knew so well. This wasn't simply an act of defiance, but rather a conscious choice to preserve something precious that they understood could easily be lost forever. The Subanon's social structure reflects their deep connection to nature and community. Their traditional governance system centers around the Timway, a leader whose authority comes not from inherited power, but from demonstrated wisdom, fairness, and deep understanding of customary law. The Timway serves as both a political leader and a spiritual guide, responsible for maintaining harmony within the community and between the community and the natural world. What makes the Subanon approach to leadership particularly fascinating is how decisions are made through consensus rather than top-down authority. Community meetings can last for hours or even days, as every voice is heard and considered. This process might seem inefficient by modern standards, but it creates a social fabric where every individual feels valued and heard, something many contemporary societies struggle to achieve. The spiritual beliefs of the Subanon people center around a complex understanding of the natural world as alive and interconnected. They believe in numerous spirits that inhabit forests, rivers, mountains, and even individual trees. These aren't abstract concepts, but living presences that must be respected and consulted before making decisions that might affect the environment. Before clearing land for farming, fishing in a new area, or harvesting materials from the forest, proper rituals and offerings must be performed. Their traditional religion includes belief in Diwata, powerful spirits that can bring both blessing and misfortune depending on how they're treated. The Subanon also recognize ancestral spirits who continue to guide and protect their descendants. This spiritual framework creates a worldview where every action has consequences, not just for the immediate community, but for the spiritual realm and future generations. The Subanon agricultural system demonstrates sophisticated understanding of sustainable farming practices that modern environmentalists are only beginning to appreciate. They practice a form of rotational farming that allows forest areas to regenerate while providing for community needs. Their traditional rice varieties, developed over centuries of careful cultivation, are adapted to their specific mountain environment and climate patterns. Perhaps most remarkably, the Subanon have maintained detailed oral traditions that serve as both entertainment and education. Their epic stories, called sudsungkit, are performed during special occasions and can take hours or even days to complete. These aren't just stories, but repositories of cultural knowledge, containing everything from historical events to moral teachings to practical information about agriculture and survival. The sudsungkit tradition faces significant challenges in the modern era. As younger generations increasingly migrate to urban areas for education and employment opportunities, fewer people are learning these complex oral traditions. The knowledge holders, often elderly community members, carry irreplaceable cultural information that could disappear if not passed on to the next generation. Traditional Subanon clothing reflects both artistic sensibility and practical needs. Women weave intricate patterns using fibers from local plants, creating textiles that serve ceremonial and everyday purposes. The geometric designs aren't merely decorative, but carry cultural meanings related to nature, spirituality, and community identity. Each pattern tells a story or represents specific concepts important to Subanon worldview. The process of creating traditional textiles is incredibly time-intensive, requiring months of preparation from harvesting plant materials to the final weaving. This craft represents not just artistic expression, but a form of meditation and cultural transmission, as older women teach younger ones while sharing stories and cultural knowledge. Music plays a central role in Subanon cultural expression. Their traditional instruments include the kulintang, a set of gongs that create complex melodic patterns, and various bamboo instruments that mimic natural sounds. Musical performances often accompany rituals, celebrations, and community gatherings, creating shared emotional experiences that strengthen social bonds. However, the Subanon people face significant contemporary challenges that threaten their traditional way of life. Deforestation and mining operations have dramatically altered their ancestral territories, disrupting the ecological balance that their culture depends upon. When logging companies clear forests that have been considered sacred spaces for generations, they're not just removing trees, but destroying spiritual landscapes that can't be replaced. Land rights remain a persistent issue. While the Philippines has laws recognizing indigenous peoples' rights to ancestral domains, implementation often falls short of legal promises. The Subanon communities find themselves fighting to prove ownership of lands they've inhabited for centuries, competing against commercial interests that see forests and mountains primarily as sources of profit. Educational challenges present another complex issue. While access to formal education has expanded, it often comes at the cost of traditional knowledge systems. Children who leave their communities to attend school in lowland areas frequently become disconnected from their cultural heritage, creating a generational gap that weakens community cohesion. Climate change adds another layer of difficulty. Traditional farming practices and seasonal patterns that guided Subanon life for generations are becoming less reliable as weather patterns shift unpredictably. This forces communities to adapt quickly while trying to maintain cultural practices tied to specific environmental conditions. Despite these challenges, many Subanon communities are finding innovative ways to preserve their heritage while adapting to contemporary realities. Some communities have established cultural centers where traditional crafts, music, and stories are taught to younger generations. These initiatives help bridge the gap between traditional knowledge and modern education. Community-based tourism projects allow Subanon people to share their culture with visitors while generating income that supports traditional livelihoods. These programs are carefully designed to respect cultural boundaries and ensure that tourism doesn't exploit or misrepresent Subanon traditions. The integration of traditional ecological knowledge with modern conservation efforts has shown promising results. Subanon understanding of forest ecosystems, developed through centuries of observation and interaction, provides valuable insights for contemporary environmental protection strategies. Their sustainable farming techniques offer models for agriculture that works with, rather than against, natural systems. Young Subanon leaders are increasingly using technology and social media to document and share their cultural heritage. They're creating digital archives of traditional music, recording elder storytellers, and connecting with other indigenous communities around the world to share strategies for cultural preservation. The resilience of the Subanon people offers important lessons about adaptation without assimilation. They demonstrate that it's possible to engage with the modern world while maintaining core cultural values and practices. Their approach to consensus-based decision-making, sustainable resource management, and intergenerational knowledge transfer provides models that could benefit communities far beyond the Philippines. Understanding the Subanon people requires recognizing them not as relics of the past, but as dynamic communities actively navigating contemporary challenges while maintaining their cultural identity. Their story isn't one of simple tradition versus modernity, but rather about finding ways to honor ancestral wisdom while building sustainable futures. The Subanon emphasis on community harmony, environmental stewardship, and spiritual connection to place offers perspectives that are increasingly relevant in our interconnected but often fragmented world. Their traditional governance systems demonstrate alternatives to hierarchical power structures, while their environmental practices show possibilities for truly sustainable development. As we conclude this exploration of Subanon heritage, we're reminded that indigenous communities like theirs represent irreplaceable human knowledge and wisdom. Their struggles and successes reflect broader questions about how societies can maintain cultural identity while adapting to rapid global change. The story of the Subanon people continues to evolve, written by community members who balance respect for ancestral traditions with pragmatic responses to contemporary realities. Their journey deserves our attention, respect, and support as they work to ensure that future generations can inherit both their cultural heritage and a healthy environment to sustain it. If you enjoyed this journey into the remarkable world of the Subanon people, like, comment, and subscribe for more stories that celebrate the incredible diversity of human cultures and traditions, only on Heritage Finder.